This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening, thanks for joining us. She stepped away for mere minutes, but in those moments, this Winnipeg mom's worst nightmare became a reality. Her 14-year-old son drowned in a city pool, surrounded by people and on-duty lifeguards. Now she and her family are demanding answers and sharing their heartbreaking story in hopes it might save someone else. CBC's Rosanna Hempel has more.
Adam Soretta Paul was an athlete, a son, brother, and friend, full of energy and laughter.
It's the most memorable laugh.
And he just had this way of instantly, putting a smile on your face.
The 14-year-old grew up swimming in a family pool. He often visited city pools, including in the days leading up to April 1st. It was that day Adam and his mother went to the Cindy Class and Recreation Complex for another swim.
I went to the washroom, and when I came back, he wasn't in the pool.
Minutes later, she texted him. No answer. Then she called. Again, no answer. More than 20 minutes passed since Cindy Paul had seen her son.
All of a sudden, a lifeguard is walking along the edge of the pool and stops almost directly in front of me and looks over and then runs and hits an alarm.
It was Adam. His family believes better supervision would have prevented his death.
None of this should have happened. None of it. And
there's no excuse for it. But we want answers. We demand answers.
Adam's father, Jason Soretta, says they haven't gotten any from the city. He says the lifeguard should have been keeping an eye on his son in the deep end, that they should have responded properly to save his life.
The one lifeguard that had the medical bag was holding the breathing bag in her hand and searching, saying, I can't find that piece, or I'm looking for that piece.
They didn't do their job. They failed us.
Meanwhile, the province says the Cindy Class and facility was in compliance with regulatory requirements. The city declined an interview. In an emailed statement, a city spokesperson said, whenever there is a critical incident in one of our recreation and leisure facilities, we follow a post-incident protocol, which includes reviewing and debriefing with staff in management. The city did not answer questions on how or whether they've improved safety and training at the pool.
We want answers, but this also, is for other parents.
So their children and loved ones make it home safe. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Saisi Dene woman is speaking out tonight after an early morning confrontation with Winnipeg police officers. The police say officers were doing a check well-being call about a young child left alone outside. But the woman denies the child was hers and says she was physically and verbally abused by officers. As CBC's Josh Crabb reports, the Winnipeg Police Service's Professional Standards Unit is now reviewing the incident.
So when they knocked, I came up the stairs and...
Charity Tom recounts the visit from Winnipeg police officers at her North End home more than 3 weeks ago as she was trying to fall asleep. A visit Tom says left her with a sore back and psychologically shaken.
They were asking if there was a little kid going in and out of here. I said, no, there's no little kid.
A portion of home security footage shared by Tom with CBC News captured her answering the door May 21st at around 4 in the morning.
I'm going to call saying that there's kids outside. The kid all by himself.
Police tell CBC News in an email, officers got a call about a child, possibly 2 years old, sitting outside on their own with no adult supervision. Tom told police that night the child was not hers. Her youngest is an 8-year-old boy, and she maintains he wasn't outside. Tom closed the door, but police didn't leave, and eventually 4 officers came inside. That's when Tom says she was physically and verbally abused. She alleges one officer pushed her back, making contact with her neck, and another twisted her arm.
I was in shock. I couldn't believe it.
The shirt she says she was wearing that night got ripped in the ordeal. Tom says she was nearly pushed down her stairs and was called the C word.
I just told you! So then stop acting like
Tom says her 15-year-old son and 18-year-old daughter were sleeping upstairs. She says her 8-year-old son was sleeping downstairs. Winnipeg Police Constable Claude Chansey says officers arrived at the residence and were met with an uncooperative adult female who initially refused entry to the home. Officers indicated they were there to do a well-being check for the safety of the child who was believed to reside there. The female denied this information that the involved child resided there, Chansey says. The child, who was later determined to be under 10 years of age, confirmed with officers that he had been outside in the yard of the residence. Police confirmed the incident is under review. Tom has a meeting with the WPS's Professional Standards Unit Monday, which handles internal investigations when there are complaints about police. Tom disputes any of her children were outside. In the video, police threatened to take her to the drunk tank and arrest her. Tom says she was sober and doesn't drink.
We're supposed to be protected by the cops, not threatened by them.
She wants an apology from Winnipeg Police and is considering making a complaint to the Law Enforcement Review Agency, or LERA. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
As we showed you yesterday, a CBC investigation found thousands of Manitobans are under the care of the public trustee. Many people in the system say it's flawed, but experts say it's not too late to fix it. The I-Team's Caroline Bargout has that story.
2 years ago, life looked a lot different for Lorne Kiss. The 58-year-old had a full-time job as a forklift operator, but was living at Silo Mission because of a gambling addiction. Then one day, a worker at the shelter asked him to see a psychiatrist.
I asked her, what's a psychiatrist going to do for me when I have a gambling addiction and I need housing? Her response was, well, you never know, he might be able to help you with some things. So I agreed. I trusted her.
The psychiatrist recommended Kiss be placed under public guardianship. He says he just had a gambling addiction and believes that's why he was stripped of the ability to make his own personal and financial decisions.
Although he twice visited 300 Carlton to get clarity.
The chief psychiatrist mailed Kiss a letter giving him 7 days to object, but by the time he got it, it was too late.
If someone told me this story, I would not believe them. I would say, you're crazy. There's no way that could happen to a human being. Not in Canada, anyway.
5 months after being placed under guardianship, his doctor wrote a letter to the chief psychiatrist, confused as to why Kiss was in the system, since he didn't have any cognitive issues. Despite that, it still took more than 2 years to get him out.
Manitoba's current chief psychiatrist wasn't in that role when Kiss was placed under guardianship. Dr. Jim Sims says the system is far from perfect, but it does try to balance the rights of an individual while protecting the most vulnerable. He says he would be open to making changes if they were approved by the province.
The system could be improved, but I think as it stands now, there is enough safeguards that we're not just taking people's rights away randomly.
Form 21 from a certain...
But Lisa Engel isn't so sure. She's an associate professor at the University of Manitoba in the Department of Occupational Therapy.
We can definitely do better as a province in this. I think it will take policy reform, and I think it will take more structure around how do we keep helping people through.
Manitoba's system is different from other provinces. In Ontario, it's not just a doctor deciding if a person should be under guardianship. That role falls to a qualified capacity assessor, who is a health professional specifically trained to determine if a person can look after themselves or not. British Columbia overhauled its system after a 2013 ombudsman investigation into the public guardian. It led to changes that make sure people get enough time to respond to a notice that they're being placed into guardianship. It also ensures those wanting a reassessment get it. Manitoba doesn't have a mechanism for reassessment and only requires that people are sent a letter and given 7 days to respond when they're being placed into the system.
The ability to control one's own finances is seen as a hallmark of independence. And so to have a major aspect of one's independence put into jeopardy or indeed taken away by the state, that should raise concern.
Brandon Trask is an assistant professor in the University of Manitoba's Faculty of Law. He says it's time for the government to have a comprehensive review of the Mental Health Act as it relates to the public guardian. Experts and those in the system say Manitoba needs to give more than a week's notice for people to object. and needs a way for people to get reassessed. Plus, better training for people making these life-changing decisions.
I would love having my independence.
Lorne Kiss agrees. His health took a turn for the worse when he was placed under guardianship.
I like this place, everything.
Even though he's been out for almost a year, he's still suffering from the mental and physical effects. He hopes by speaking out, he'll save another person from going through what he did. Caroline Bargood, CBC News, Winnipeg.
If you have a tip for our I-Team, you can call our confidential tip line at 204-788-3744 or email iteam@cbc.ca. A monument honoring the victims of last year's deadly bus crash near Prairie will be unveiled in Dolphin tomorrow on the 1-year anniversary. But it could still be many months before any real design changes to the intersection where it happened are actually made. A memorial stands near the intersection of the Trans-Canada and Highway 5. 17 crosses left to honor those who lost their lives. The province plans to overhaul the intersection. In January, a safety report showed 3 potential options: a roundabout, a wider median, or a setup that forces drivers to make a U-turn instead of turning left. No final recommendation has been made. The province says later this month it will begin design consultations with local governments, the public, and the families of those involved in the crash. Carberry's mayor says change can't come soon enough.
It's fresh in everybody's mind. We want to see some action. We've been after this for years and years to try to get something done. We've had lots of accidents, mishaps, near misses out at that intersection. So it's time something gets done in the long term. And yes, a year later, it's like it was yesterday.
Coming up a little later in the show, we'll be speaking with the mayor of Dolphin about that memorial this weekend and check in on how the community is doing 1 year later. He fought through life, and now the battle his community fought after his death may help pave the way to making sure others who struggle with their mental health get the help they need. Firefighter Preston Heinbigner died by suicide last month. Now, weeks later, it's deemed a line-of-duty death. CBC's Gavin Axelrod has more and a warning. This story contains details about suicide.
Earlier this week, Manitoba's Workers' Compensation Board accepted a claim associated with the late Preston Heinbigner. The 40-year-old firefighter died by suicide in April. United Firefighters of Winnipeg President Tom Billis says the decision feels like vindication.
There was never any doubt in my mind that it was the effects, the cumulative effects of the job that led us to this.
A memo written by Billis was obtained by CBC News. It says the approved claim recognizes that mental health injuries can have the same causal connection as physical injuries, causing an unfortunate workplace fatality. Heinbigner's close friends and colleagues have said he struggled with post-traumatic stress disorder and called for the board to deem his death as an in-the-line-of-duty death. Billis says since the claim has been accepted, Heinbigner's family will receive compensation and some benefits like counseling.
It's good for the family. He has a young family and all that. But for our members, I think hopefully it will mean more resources. It will mean heightened awareness, timeliness in seeking and getting those resources.
Cameron Abry is the chief of Dolphin's fire department and past president of the Manitoba Association of Fire Chiefs. He called the board's decision a huge stride forward for all first responders.
Nobody ever entered the career or even in the role of a volunteer firefighter. Nobody struck down that path with the thoughts of, having to deal with some of the things that they have to deal with.
The province recently promised to fund 3 mental health counselors for first responders in the wake of Heinbigner's death. Billis is hopeful that it's all a sign of times changing.
The days of suck it up, buttercup are long gone, and very, very happy to tell you that.
Heinbigner's name will be added to the monument for fallen firefighters in Winnipeg and a memorial for fallen firefighters in the United States next year. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
For anyone struggling with thoughts of suicide, help is available. You can call or text the Suicide Crisis Line. The number is 988. It's available 24 hours a day. A 36-year-old man has been charged with second-degree murder in a fatal stabbing near a downtown elementary school. 49-year-old Ricky Manchese died after being stabbed near Sister McNamara School on Tuesday. He and his wife were on their way to meet their son. Matthew Gerald Tomac Peltier was arrested the following day and has now been charged. Brandon has a pest problem. The city's Parks and Recreation Director says there seems to be more ground squirrels than usual. The city has contracted out an exterminator to help deal with this invasive species, which some people call gophers. He says there's about 15 problem areas, including Brandon's largest green space, the Riverbank Discovery Center. The executive director says they're monitoring the situation closely.
Gophers are part of nature, and we let the gophers be gophers until it becomes a situation where it's potentially unsafe either for people or for either wildlife or, you know, the dogs that are here as well. So we keep an eye out on things. We're always watching.
The Riverbank will see thousands of visitors soon for two of its biggest events, the National Indigenous Peoples Day and Canada Day. He says they're working with the city to ensure ground squirrel populations don't impede visitors' safety. The city has begun treating problem areas, but are cautioning it could take up to 3 rounds of non-poisonous treatments to see a difference in the population. A trial in a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against the city of Winnipeg by a former recycling contractor has come to a conclusion. The trial involved allegations of contract breaches by both the city and waste collection company Emterra. As CBC's Cameron McLean reports, this isn't the end of the legal war.
Problems started immediately after Emterra Environmental took over the city's recycling collection contract in 2012. Who's to blame for those problems, which persisted throughout the 5 years of the contract, is now up to a judge to determine. Emterra filed a lawsuit against the city in 2018. It alleges the city failed to provide complete data about households needing recycling collection. It also accuses the city of purchasing inferior carts, which would frequently break, as well as changing the scope of its contract and imposing unfair penalties. The city says Emterra was unprepared to take on the work, with insufficient drivers and vehicles. Its trucks had trouble operating in Winnipeg winters, drivers were observed mishandling carts, and it was their responsibility to get the data it needed to do the work. Emterra's lawsuit estimated its damages as high as $67 million. The city filed its own counter-lawsuit, seeking nearly $10 million for Emterra's alleged breaches of contract. Justice Candice Graman did not know when she would reach a decision in this case. This is not the only lawsuit Emterra has filed against the city. A separate lawsuit filed in 2022 is seeking up to $6 million for unpaid bonuses and deducted payments. No date has been set for that trial to begin. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Louise Bridge over the Red River at Point Douglas will be closed to vehicle traffic for 2 weeks for annual maintenance. The closure will start 6 a.m. on Monday and last until June 28th at 6 p.m. Drivers in the area are advised to plan extra travel time to get where they're going. The city says people going downtown from westbound Nairn Avenue or from southbound Stadacona Street should take Midwinter Avenue to the Disraeli Bridge as an alternative route. There will still be pedestrian access on one side of the bridge during the closure. The leadership of a Greek Orthodox church in Winnipeg says they're ready to move out of the community after a major fire and a string of thefts. CBC's Zubina Ahmed has more.
The Holy Ascension Greek Orthodox Church has been operating on Euclid Avenue since the 1980s. Stephanie Sarlakis, the church's secretary, says Tuesday's fire badly damaged the basement and banquet hall and likely left the electrical, water and boiler areas in unrepairable condition. She says the church already needed hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of upgrades, which meant they weren't able to get insurance for the building. Sarlakis says the church has been hit by repeated break-ins over the past week, and a number of holy items were either stolen or damaged. She says some parishioners were already afraid to come back because of crime in the area, and she fears they now have no choice but to close their doors for good. Point Douglas community advocate Sel Burrows says the building, which was built in 1938, is a historical site, and its loss would be another blow to an area that's already struggling. The city says the cause of the fire is still under investigation. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A new study says a worst-case scenario could see polar bears disappear in the southern part of Hudson Bay as early as the 2030s. Alex Crawford at the University of Manitoba's Environment and Geography Department is one of the researchers who co-authored the report. He says the effect of warming temperatures on sea ice plays a role in the survival of polar bears.
The loss of that habitat that makes it so that polar bears and the seals no longer have the environment that they're used to living in. And without the seals being present, the polar bears don't have that food source anymore.
That worst case scenario to happen, we'd have to continue emitting greenhouse gases at an increasing rate. He says the rate plateaued during COVID, but it's been steadily rising for the past several decades. CBC weather specialist Riley Laychuk is back. And Riley, we saw the polar bears looked like they were sunbathing in some of those shots.
Yeah, we'll get right into it because I want to talk a little bit about that sea ice on the Hudson Bay coast and kind of how it's doing this year. Here's a look at some data from the U.S. National Ice Center. They keep track of how much ice there is on the oceans in the world, including along the Hudson Bay coast here. So you can see a good chunk of Hudson Bay already in open water. Usually, or I should say last year, we saw full breakup of the ice on Hudson Bay on the 25th of June. And the more we get sort of easterly winds or northerly winds pushing some of this water toward Churchill, the sooner we'll see that breakup. So it remains to be seen how quickly we'll see that ice breaking up, but we're about a week and a half or so away from that date that we saw breakup happening last year. Satellite radar right now. We did see mainly sunny skies to the south today. A little bit of instability, not out of the forecast, but kind of creeping across the international border there, right around the Melita area. So don't be surprised in extreme southwestern Manitoba if you hear a few rumbles of thunder into the evening tonight. As we get into the weekend, though, we do see things kind of getting active again. We'll talk about thunderstorms in a second. Starting Saturday, mix of sun and clouds, mainly sunny skies, maybe a little bit of instability. This ahead of an area of low pressure that will track across northern and central Saskatchewan, impacting northern Manitoba. But it's what happens as we get later into Saturday that I want to show you here. In particular, around the supper hour and just after, a good chance of more thunderstorm activity across southern Manitoba. Most of that risk centered to the southwestern corner of the province and into the Dolphin region, but we could see a few rumbles of thunder, especially into the late evening hours Saturday into early Sunday across southern Manitoba. Manitoba Marathon, of course, happening first thing Sunday morning. Note that there's going to be a lot of road closures for that. So if you're out first thing Sunday, be mindful, especially along that route. Could see a few scattered showers first thing, sunny breaks in the afternoon. Here is that area of low pressure I was talking about, bringing rain to parts of northern Manitoba, clearing us out as we get into the first thing Monday morning. So we're looking at sunnier skies as we head to the later part of Sunday into Monday, but more rain through parts of northern Manitoba as we start the work week. Here is the thunderstorm risk for Saturday. Minor risk, we could see some thunderstorms through northern Manitoba, even as far east as Winnipeg, but it's this area in orange and yellow I want to give warning to here, because we could see some fairly strong winds in this area in yellow. This area in orange is the greatest likelihood of severe weather tomorrow in Manitoba. Wind gusts up to 100 kilometers an hour, and can't rule out a tornado once again in southwestern Manitoba as we get into the evening on Saturday. General 5 to 10 millimeters across northern Manitoba as we get into the day on Sunday, which of course is Father's Day. And here in Winnipeg, we're looking at mainly sunny skies by the time we reach the afternoon, 25 degrees for your Sunday. Overnight tonight, 16, partly cloudy in Winnipeg. Sun cloud mix, 20 first thing in the morning, and we're looking at 28 by the time we reach the afternoon, Brittany. 25 for Sunday, and then we're below seasonal once again starting next week.
All right, thanks, Riley.
No problem.
Grad season isn't just for teens and 20-somethings. A group of First Nations mothers and grandmothers crossed the stage today at a University of Winnipeg convocation ceremony. CBC's Emily Brass was there.
Vivian Rose Scott.
She stepped onto the stage and into the history books. Vivian Scott is part of the University of Winnipeg's first Indigenous cohort to graduate from the Developmental Studies program.
I brought my grandkids and I brought my family and my sisters, and we're also here. I wanted them to show that if Grandma can do it, you can do it.
Not only did Scott graduate with a Bachelor of Arts in Education, she was elected to the Band Council of Pimicikamak Cree Nation while she was a student. Scott says she had to push the university to let her study the same things she wants young people to learn in her community.
I wanted to do certain teachings, but because we had to always follow guidelines and policies and procedures, I'm like, no, it's time we teach our language, the importance of learning language and culture and land.
Is Victoria and Sannon, my husband is Peter and Sannon.
That's also key for her classmate Victoria and Sannon. She plans to translate school books into Dene, and Sannon got her degree mostly online using spotty internet, and she did it while working full-time, running the Head Start program in Lac Brochet.
If you look at the map, it's way up there, very close to the territories.
On top of all that, Nan Sannon successfully battled cancer, doing chemo while she was studying. She says she couldn't have done it without support from her family, teachers, and classmates.
So we all became even stronger together. So if one was down, we would try to lift them up. One was struggling, we would help them.
Everyone in the cohort agrees going back to school can be tough and scary, but don't let that stop you.
Intimidation is just a feeling. You get over it and don't let anybody intimidate you.
If I can do it, you can do it. And it's don't even let your age or the amount of time you've been out of school deter what you're capable of, because you're capable of anything. The sky's the limit.
Emily Brass, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Still ahead, it was a heist fit for a movie, and now one of the main stars is getting ready to turn himself in. More on the largest gold heist in Canadian history and the suspect who's been on the run. That story and more after the break. There's been a development in the largest gold heist in Canadian history. Last spring, police say $20 million in gold bars and cash were loaded onto a truck near Toronto's Pearson Airport, then driven away. Now CBC News is learning that one of the suspects still at large is preparing to turn himself in. Katie Nicholson has the latest.
It was the largest gold heist in Canadian history, more than $20 million in gold and foreign currency in this 5-ton truck, stolen from a cargo facility. One of the first people investigators met was an Air Canada manager who gave them a tour. Simranpreet Panesar later became a suspect.
He resigned in the summer of last year, and then we have not been able to locate him since. We have an idea, and I can't speak to where we believe he is right now.
2 months after police announced charges against him, Panesar has resurfaced. In a statement, Panesar's lawyer Greg LaFontaine says his client is voluntarily returning to Canada in the coming weeks and is anxious to have an opportunity to demonstrate his absolute innocence. He says right now, Panesar is tidying up his affairs abroad, but wouldn't say where. But on Wednesday, Panesar messaged CBC News via a WhatsApp business account connected to an Indian mobile number. Before he disappeared, Panesar and his wife Prairie made music videos in Canada, like this one, and were apparently trying to break into the Punjabi entertainment industry. Days before the gold heist charges were announced in April, Prairie, who is not a gold heist suspect, posted pictures from a photo shoot in a city in northern Punjab. She tagged people and businesses in her posts, and CBC News contacted them and sent multiple emails to Prairie's official account. That all led up to the WhatsApp message from the suspect on Wednesday. If Panesar returns to Canada, that leaves just one suspect still in the wind, Arsalan Chowdhury.
The case is still in its early stages and the investigation is ongoing, but across the border, a U.S. arms trafficking trial involving the alleged wheelman in the gold heist is scheduled to begin in September in Pennsylvania. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration is investigating how counterfeit titanium was used in Boeing and Airbus commercial jets. The material, which was purchased from a little-known Chinese company, was sold with falsified documents and used in parts for both plane makers. It was discovered by a parts supplier, which found small corrosion holes in the material. Titanium is an important component in aerospace manufacturing. It's used to make landing gear and the blades and discs for turbine engines. This is the latest in a string of recent safety concerns in the aviation industry. From dry to drenched, we've seen a big change from the hot and dry springs we've had in recent years. When we come back, we'll hear more about why things are shifting and what it means for the prairies this summer. Rain has been no stranger here this spring. It's a big change from the hot and dry springs we've had in recent years. And as Ethan Williams reports, it's a welcome change for those who've been too dry for too long.
Standing water hasn't been a common sight on prairie fields over the last few years, but Bill Prabilski's farm near Yorkton has seen its fair share of rain this past month.
We're fortunate here. We've been able to get the crop in the ground. Obviously, there's more than enough moisture now to get the crops germinated and get them off to a good start.
In fact, many locations in the province saw above average moisture last month, the first time that's happened in about a year and a half. Some regions were in severe to extreme drought as recently as the end of April, but that's changed dramatically as of the end of May, with parts of southwestern Saskatchewan and southeastern Alberta out of any drought classification for the first time in more than 3 years. The moisture is the result of several low-pressure systems packed with rain moving across the prairies. An active weather pattern not seen here for some time. It comes after a winter dominated by El Niño, the global weather pattern which sends warm and dry air from the equatorial Pacific into the prairies. The pattern is now breaking down, and it could be a reason why things are changing.
During these transition zones, it is possible to kind of flip that switch, to go from sort of a warmer and drier to more of a more average, and certainly increase in precipitation that we've seen. It is possible for that to happen, and it's quite welcome, actually.
Hydrologist John Pomeroy says the rain may be good news for farmers, but it's too late to fill critical prairie waterways in time for summer.
The stream flow really depends on the overwinter snowpack and the rate at which that melts. And those snowpacks, when they melted back in April, were still below normal, and so stream flow was short and sweet.
It is good news for the forest fire situation. This time last year, Saskatchewan had more than double the number of fires we've seen so far this year, and more than 50 times the amount of hectares burned by fires. But experts warn the forest can dry out fast.
It really takes a few hours after a light rainfall for that to dry out, but if you have a heavier rain, well, maybe it's going to take a couple of days, but then you can get surface fires going.
A concern as Environment Canada's summer forecast calls for warmer and drier than normal weather. Ethan Williams, CBC News, Regina.
Riley Lachuk is back. And Riley, we've both been eyeing that 28-day degree day that you had circled on Saturday's forecast, but also some wet weather that we are going to have to be contending with as well.
Potentially a little bit of wet weather, potentially some thunderstorms, Brittany. The greatest chance for some of that rain, of course, in northern Manitoba, but can't rule out, of course, a few scattered showers here over the weekend. The best chance, though, comes as we get into next week, which I'll show you in your 7-day forecast. As for your forecast for tomorrow, we are looking at, well, a mix of sun and clouds for the most part, although, as I mentioned earlier, that risk of a thunderstorm as we get into the afternoons tomorrow. This is Bonnie Bell. Thank you, Leslie, for sending this picture, and you can send yours into talkback@cbc.ca. Bonnie Bell is actually with the Humane Society and does some work with the C-Spot Read program and some other programs there, so great work. 20 degrees first thing in the morning, up to 28 by the afternoon. Yes, we've all been eyeing this one, I think, for a few days now. As mentioned, risk of a thunderstorm as we get through into the afternoon hours tomorrow. 26 is where we got to in Winnipeg today, as well as in Portage-la Prairie, 25 in Brandon, 27 in Winkler this afternoon. So we've been really feeling sort of that push of that southerly warm flow into southern Manitoba and into southern Saskatchewan as well. 23 in Swan River this afternoon, 22 in Thompson. I want to talk about the winds because we will see a little bit of a breeze as we get through the day tomorrow. So this starts the day here. Westman, not so much in the gusty conditions, but here in Winnipeg and the Red River Valley, certainly we're going to feel those south winds, 20 gusting to 40. Keep in mind south winds, so not particularly a cold wind, but certainly you'll feel that breeze as we get into even the evening hours here. Winds out of the south, 30 gusting to 50 in Winnipeg, but drive down the highway a couple hours and we're seeing winds pretty much calm tomorrow in the Brandon region by the time we get to the late afternoon. A little bit of cloud lingering around. This is some of that cloud cover associated with some of that instability that will move into northern Manitoba, bringing a chance of showers across western Manitoba. I think these icons overdoing it a little bit. We're just looking at maybe some scattered showers throughout the day or through the overnight period tonight. 8 overnight in Lynn Lake, 9 in Thompson, a mainly clear sky, and there's a little bit of that instability, sort of that first push ahead of that system that rolls through later Saturday into Sunday. By the time we reach the afternoon, looking at 22 in the Paw, 20 in Thompson, a mainly cloudy sky, and a few showers rolling through Lynn Lake at 16 degrees. Tomorrow in southern Manitoba, maybe a little bit of instability even as far south as Swan River tomorrow, first thing in the morning. Otherwise, we're looking at a mix of sun and clouds throughout the day until we get to the afternoon. Then we'll expect or anticipate some of that thunderstorm activity rolling in. Quick look at your forecast for Sunday now. Northwestern Ontario looking at 23 to 26 degrees, 25 in Winnipeg, a mainly sunny sky, and Brittany, maybe a few more showers rolling through northern Manitoba as we get through the day on Sunday as well.
All right, thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
The Princess of Wales shared an update on her health today. She announced she's making good progress in her cancer treatment and will make her first public appearance since her surgery and diagnosis. In a statement, Princess Catherine says she's not out of the woods yet and faces a few more months of recovery. She says there are good days and bad, and she's allowing herself much needed time to heal. The princess will be attending the Trooping the Colour ceremony tomorrow in London to mark King Charles's birthday. A palace spokesperson says the king is delighted that she's able to attend. Kate announced in March that she's been diagnosed with cancer and was undergoing preventative chemotherapy. It's been 1 year since countless lives were changed after 17 people were killed and 8 others significantly injured in a bus crash near Carberry. After the break, we speak with the mayor of Dolphin about how his community is dealing with the aftermath 12 months later. Stay with us. The year that has passed since a bus crash killed 17 seniors headed to a Manitoba casino on a bright late spring day has been one of grief, community support, a return to normal, and for some, a long road to recovery. But over these past 12 months, the City of Dolphin and a group of family members have been working to honor all of the victims. Mayor David Boziak joins me now. Thanks for being here, Mayor.
Well, thanks very much for giving me the opportunity.
First off, how's the community doing now 1 year after the crash?
It's an interesting question because I think that for some of us, it's just about, I would say life is normal and as usual. But obviously for those folks connected to people in the accident and extended family and friends, it's very much different. And this anniversary is a very significant stage of the grieving process for many people in our community.
I know we've spoken to you many times. I've spoken to you many times out in Dolphin. This memorial was a project that has been in the works for months. So what can you tell us about it and why it's important to the community?
I think one of the best parts from the city's point of view is when the family members came to City Council, there was unanimous support from Council to do whatever needed to be done to make this happen for the families. And so in talking to some of the family members over the last several months as the planning has been going on, there's been a sense of working together, a sense of supporting each other through this process. And I talked to one of the key organizers just the other day, and she had indicated how the actual planning process has been a very positive process for them in their healing, in that when they got together more formally at the beginning to develop some plans, they became a support group, she said, and that over the weeks and months, as time went on, they supported each other, they helped each other, and they all feel that the process has been very worthwhile and are very much looking forward to tomorrow, actually.
You spoke last year about the history that was lost because of this crash. How has this tragedy helped bring people together, maybe outside of those families? You spoke about the kind of grief group that's been brought together through this monument, but how's the community been brought together?
I think what I've heard around the community is that they want to acknowledge that something terrible happened, but they don't necessarily want to remember the accident. They want to remember the people. And they want to remember the influences that the people had in our community and in the broader scope of things. And, you know, they were involved in church groups and they were involved in organizations and they were friends and neighbors. And so that's what I've gathered out of this last year or so in talking to folks is that, obviously the sense of loss, but also several people have mentioned how, you know, tragedy brings people together. And as unfortunate as this accident was for us, it brought some groups together, and it made some people created friendships because of it. They knew each other previously, but now they consider themselves very strong friends. And I guess there's support in that, and the community has rallied around. And you know, you'll recall last year we created a community resource center, and we're in wonderment a little bit because there weren't many people that showed up for the support. And we were worried initially that people weren't getting the support they needed, and found out afterwards that the support was being provided, but it was being provided by family, by friends, by churches, and that people seemed to want to grieve in private. And so that's been one thing that's been unique about this, and that obviously it was an event that affected the entire community. Different families and different people grieved in different ways, but we were very confident that the supports they required were in our community for them.
Mayor Boziak, I want to thank you for your time and wish you and your whole community well tomorrow on what I'm sure is going to be a difficult day.
Thank you very much.
CBC crews will be in Dolphin tomorrow for the ceremony marking the 1-year anniversary of the crash. You can find coverage of the event on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Still ahead, Riley Laychuk is back with a last check on our weekend forecast. Stay with us.
Thought I'd skip ahead to Sunday and show you the forecast for the Manitoba Marathon. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be some road closures along that route, so just be mindful of that. 18 degrees first thing in the morning when that race is starting at 7 o'clock in the morning. Chance of some scattered showers first thing. Otherwise, we're looking at mainly cloudy by the time it kind of wraps up. 20 degrees. Could be a bit humid as well. 7-day forecast looks like this. 28 tomorrow afternoon. Watch that risk of a thunderstorm in the afternoon. Chance of some scattered showers in the morning on Sunday. Our next chance for showers comes Tuesday at 16 degrees, and we're kind of stubbornly stuck below seasonal as we head into the first day of summer, which starts at 3:50 p.m. on Thursday. Well, as mentioned, tomorrow marks 1 year since that devastating bus crash near Carberry, a day, of course, many in our province, Brittany, will never forget.
It's been a year of grief and hardship and change as Dolphin and the surrounding communities get ready to honor the lives of each of the people on the bus that day. We leave you tonight with their memories and a moment for each of the 17 victims who never came home. Good night.
Take care.